Did Michael Jackson rip off Bobby Farrell of Boney M? What's going on, guys? Thanks for watching Sight Sounds Flavors on YouTube, sightsoundsflavors.com. If at any point in time during the video you like it, please smash that like button. Please subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for notifications, and leave a comment down below. So, Bobby Farrell didn't actually sing. There's rumors that he was actually singing at a very low background vocal level, so lower than the two female singers, but still audible. I don't know if that's true or not, but the voice, the main male voice that we hear, the only male voice that we hear, is not Bobby Farrell. It's the producer, writer, Frank Farrell. So basically, Michael would not have stolen Bobby Farrell's vocals. Even if they were so low you couldn't really hear them. I mean, that's not to say that you... So you can have a vocal so low that you don't hear it, but you do hear it, kind of thing. But I'm not... Look, for all intents and purposes, Bobby's microphones were turned off. I don't know. He did perform, I think, in his voice later, and it didn't sound bad. So it's arguable. I don't know. Look, the point is that MJ did not rip off Bobby Farrell's vocals. However, he totally, in my opinion, ripped off not just his dancing, but like the whole soul of his performance, the vibe. It's hard to explain, but I feel like it, because Boney M, the big hits, Daddy Cool, Rasputin, and then Ma Baker, and they had others. I mean, they tore it up. They tore up the dance floor. Mainly Bobby Farrell, because the background singers, they had a lot of style too, but they kind of stood in place. They would wail a little bit back and forth, use the arms, smile, whatever, but they didn't really move. They weren't, beating their feet. You know what I mean? And Bobby Farrell was all over the place. He was doing spins. It almost feels like he did a backward moonwalk, but you don't actually see it, because I think everything was just very forward facing. But I do think that, excuse me, I do think that some of the dance moves were either downright ripped off or maybe like improvised, if you will. But I totally think that Michael Jackson owed Bobby Farrell a check. And watch the state sue me now for sharing that opinion with you. But I just think and maybe he didn't just downright steal it, but I just think he was definitely inspired, because then you look at James Brown, and Michael Jackson took a lot from James Brown as well. But the difference is that there's video of him being very pleasant to James Brown and showing James Brown love. And I don't think the words Bobby Farrell ever came out of Michael Jackson's mouth while he was on top. I don't. Now, if I'm wrong, because I'm often wrong, leave a comment down below and say, oh, well, as a matter of fact, in 1982 at Soul Train, he thanked Bobby Farrell. Then I'm going to be like, okay, you win, I've lost, kind of situation. And I'd be all the happier, But because Bobby didn't sing, I think maybe Michael would not, appreciate the comparison even on a dancing level, because, it was widely known that on all the shows, Saturday Night Live, Carson, whatever, it was all pre-recorded. So you were not playing live. And, now we know about auto-tunes and, whatever. Auto-tunes, is it auto-tunes? I think that's for recording. Whatever they use on vocals, enhancing vocals, on live settings, it's pretty common. And actually, knowing what we know now, maybe they wouldn't have gone so tough on Milli Vanilli. But the thing is, Boney M was Milli Vanilli before Milli Vanilli, but before people were looking so closely. And so because people were looking not so closely, I think that a lot of people back in the day probably got away with a lot. What I mean by that is like playing pre-recorded tracks at concerts. But even still, they could play, they could sing, whereas Bobby Farrell could not sing like Frank Farrell. And if he couldn't sing like him, then they were going to see him as being basically talentless. so I think that because, he didn't sing, maybe Michael probably wouldn't have wanted to like throw credit his way for the dancing, but I think like there's just no denying it because like, you know, Bobby like very rarely stood in place, and when he did, he had swagger about it, but his dancing, excuse me, his dancing was just phenomenal, just total class, like the opposite of what I just did. But I mean, this right here, citrus drop. This is the Kroger Diet Mountain Dew sort of, you know, uh, copycat. But it's really not a copycat because Diet Mountain Dew's got zero point 0.4 calories and this has got 0 sugar. And anyways, you drink enough of that and you're going to need to burp. And if you don't burp, it's bad for you. And I know you guys want me making these videos for a long, long time, so I'm not going to put myself in harm's way. But basically, it's just one of those things. It's just one of those things. I wonder, because there's a lot of artists. I really respect Guns N' Roses because they come out and say, listen, if it wasn't for Hanoi Rocks, we would not be here. Hanoi Rocks was basically buried by Rat and Motley Crue on the West Coast, and their drummer died with Vince Neil. So I thought it was cool. And I thought also cool of them to say the New York Dolls. The New York Dolls had one record. They could only do one record. They hated each other so much. They were so dysfunctional and so raw and crazy. One album, that's it, one. And it went gold, which is huge for a New York club band. But one band with one gold record, for a band like Guns N' Roses that sold 10 million, to say, listen, if it wasn't for them, we may not be here. That's big. That's huge. You know what I'm saying? So, but even still, though, I can't see Michael Jackson showing any kind of love to Bobby Farrell, even though he probably took at least 30% of MJ's stage, basically, persona is Bobby Farrell to a T. So it's just, he might have gotten a move here, a move there from James Brown. But Bobby Farrell, I think, like I said, I would say a good 30% of Michael's whole style seems like a carbon copy of Bobby Farrell. So if you see it, leave a comment. If you know of anywhere, it doesn't just have to be video, even in print, anything where Michael Jackson gave credit to Bobby Farrell of Boney M, I would love to see that. I would be beyond shocked if you found something like that, because I have a feeling that while Michael, I don't want to say, it's not like he robbed them like we robbed the Native Americans, but basically basically robbed him. He took 30%. Well, he didn't say, I'm going to take 30% of Bobby, but I'm saying that 30% of what Michael is, the finished product, what he was on stage, was totally Bobby Farrell. And I think that in Michael's mind, maybe he was too good to be seen giving credit to Bobby Farrell. But like I said, if I'm wrong, leave it in the comments. If you even know about it, even if you can't prove it, if you know about it, I want to hear about it.